Wait for it. Do we have to do the hand thing? I don't know.
Oh, is that getting old? We need to figure out something new to do.
No, I like it. It's like usually Welcome everyone. It is I, Jonathan Carford, aka Coach K, and this is my man in crime / co-host / partner / whatever we're going to call you now, Jonathan Moss, aka JMO. And we are coming at you live for the AI Business Network episode number 11. The theme for today, as you have so eloquently named it, is scaling intelligence from human AI collaboration to autonomous business models. But before we dive in, if you don't know what AI Business Network is, we focus on how the heck to use AI inside of across the business structure, whether that's finance, HR, revenue, etc., and specifically for leaders. JMO and I came together because we kept realizing we have the same conversations as other people all the time. Like, we might as well talk about this together because we're doing it separately, so might as well talk about it. And we talk to people literally all day long that are experiencing the same challenges. And so we release research. We have the podcast, we have the media, we have blogs, we have events, and then we have the membership where all we do is talk about how do you strategically and tactically use AI real time to make an impact. So that's what we got cooking. And we got today is what? What do we got cooking for today? What do we got?
All right, let's talk. What are these spirit fingers? Is this the new thing?
Spirit fingers. We're going to do this from now on. Not this. We're going to do the spirit fingers.
All right. Let's dive in. So we had obviously, as if you are a GTM AI podcast listener, as you know, we that's Coach and I do episodes there, and one of the episodes we just recently had was with the co-founder and CEO Amos from Swan AI, who are doing some amazing things. And so our topic one is really just to double click on some of the conversations that we had with him, which is really this concept of intelligence over headcount. And he's like put this kind of stamp down, and I had a conversation with him actually today. And he was telling me about with Amos today, over something different. Yeah. And he was telling me how much capacity he was at, and I'm like, I almost was like, dude, man, you've kind of made this claim on 3, and I think you may need to go to 4, buddy. You may be there. I don't know. You may be there, but I don't know if you're going to, because you said so much 3. But anyway, his approach is really interesting and unique, but I think we're seeing it more and more, right? You're seeing these from the companies that are really scaling up growth, with very lean teams. And so kind of his approach is really kind of not adding bodies to problems, which is what people have traditionally done in the past. And a lot of companies still do this, is they've got a problem. The solution is, well, let me just hire some people to go solve that problem. But they're actually scaling by thinking about this more intelligently. And instead of hiring people, they're building agents and other things to handle a lot of these tasks that really help people, amplify. And in fact, one of the kind of terms he's coined, and we talk about in not only the newsletter and the pod, is how do you 100x, become a 100x seller? So how can you amplify your capabilities by 100x? Yeah. And instead of like shifting from, replacing human effort, actually amplifying human effort and pointing the human time in the right places to drive maximum output, maximum value. So, so I thought this is a really concept, and I would love to kind of get any of your takeaways, from the podcast, kind of what he's doing and how how you think that this can translate into other businesses or larger businesses, and I'll do the same.
Yeah, so Jordan Nettles comments, good to see him, my man. He's the solutions engineer at Momentum. So I gotta have my name quoted Momentum a couple times, so I'm gonna get my quote in first thing. So here we go.
Hey, you ever heard? I don't know if from where I'm from, they have like the swear jar, right?
Yeah,
Momentum swear jar. So every time
it has to be with. Okay, hang on. Here's the deal. We had a webinar with Amos this last week, so I got to talk about it, and Jordan was on with me. So come on now. Come on, here we go.
Okay,
okay, there you go. I have a pass. So Amos came on, and we had this long chat about it because Momentum feels the same way. Of course, they're obviously Amos and his team is taking it to the extreme with 3 co-founders, but we feel the same way of saying we don't want to replace the human. We want to augment and amplify the human. We believe that the human is the source of the problem, but not in the way you think. It's more like it's more of what they're required or expected to do that's the problem, not that the human is the problem. So when you take off the wrong expectations and let them do what they're supposed to be doing, which is having relationships and connect, and let the AI do everything else, then you can really amplify and move fast. And that's the thing I love about Amos, is because they're taking that to the extreme, obviously. But I love that, like, he started the podcast by saying we started with constraints. What was the first constraint? You can't hire somebody. You got to figure out something else. And most companies don't give that as a constraint. They say we want to move as fast as possible, so our constraint is budget, right? It's not the people. So I love that they gave that as a task, and I'm sure it's freaking hard, because he's probably going like crazy, as nice as he is and calm as he is. Like, he's like flying like nuts. So it's cool to see them see where it breaks or where it needs to be solved, and also see what's capable, because you don't really know what you can do unless you push yourself to do it. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see if they can sustain that. But I don't think, let's just say, for example, they did have to hire two more people, right? If they got to $30 million with two more people, like, no one would be like, I told you so, good do it. I mean, who would ever say that?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And our next topic is going to be interesting, and it's one of my favorite ones. But yeah, I think like everyone's thinking about this, and the media is pushing a lot of the wrong narratives, I think, and just of like, how can we cut costs? How can we replace people? How can we do these things? And that's not really like the approach to take. And
Yeah.
I love what you just you mentioned. And there's a term. What is it? That necessity is the mother of all invention, right?
Yeah.
And so you have a necessity, like, instead of just thinking about going and hiring someone to just like throw at it, like, how can I solve this problem? Like, think about what is the problems I need to solve, or maybe it is that thing to put a body at, but then what can you take away somewhere else that someone's doing that is less complex, more manual, et cetera, that they can then spend time on that complex problem that you need to solve.
Mm-hmm.
That's the real kind of approach. And, I love a couple things that he said, which is, you're the most important piece in actually creating the workflow, and AI is there to support you. And I wholeheartedly
Yeah.
make the work for you. And if you just slap AI on top of a workflow that it doesn't know, or a bad workflow that doesn't work, it's not going to fix it for you. So, like, you are really the most important part. And this is like one of my favorite things, which you said, and I think this is so important, especially for our next topic, is the future of go-to-market organizations is actually reducing the number of system interactions and increasing the number of human interactions.
Yeah.
And I think like that is so important. And, we've talked a little bit about how AI, we've kind of been in this shift to digital, right? COVID happened. We had all this great, tech come out that bloated our stacks. And then we have AI that's now amplifying some of the bad habits and bad things that we've gotten into. And we've kind of swung almost to all digital. And AI is amplifying it so much with so much noise. It's almost we're having to swing back to kind of analog, and it's pushing us back to human interactions and human connections and things of that nature, which I think is actually a good thing, because we need more of that. So finding the ways to get humans interacting with humans more often, and taking away all the things that all this tech bloat and everything else has caused us, administrative pain, I think is the right approach to go.
Well, I'm gonna switch gears, but one thing, like, we kind of talked about this after the podcast last time, but when you think about, I listened to a couple of YC podcasts about this topic around human and whatever. If you think about, AI is now everywhere, so everyone can employ it. So AI becomes technically not very unique anymore, because everyone has it. So then what becomes the mode of uniqueness? It becomes the human, and how deeply you understand the use case, and how well you can use the AI or the automations in a way that can structure people, and that becomes your moat, which means that people then become your moat. And I think people forget that. It's that you can throw AI automation, you can get rid of people, but when you get rid of that person, you lose the creative nature, you lose all the experience, you lose that motable type thing, because the AI is replaceable. and you may think the humans are, but I'm like, the human's not replaceable. It's really hard to have to duplicate someone who's been with the company for however long. And if I had a choice of replacing somebody who just needed to have some training and help versus just getting, amplifying them, I'd rather keep them and amplify them times 10 than reducing them and amplifying a smaller team by 10. You know what I mean? So
I agree. And what people I think are missing, and we see this a lot too, even in the conversations that we have and just in general, is even if you go get AI, you still have to train it just like you train an employee. You still have to manage its performance. You still have to implement it and check that everything's going. It still breaks. And if you don't give it the knowledge and training, it doesn't know what to do. Just like if you just hired someone and stuck them somewhere and didn't do that too, they wouldn't know what to do. AI is the same way. It doesn't just magically have context and know your company, know what you want it to do, et cetera. So there's the human element has to be front and center. And you can't just think about, I'm just going to go get AI and I'm going to replace this person. Like that's not at all how it works.
Totally.
Speaking of going to our next topic, which is one of my favorite ones. And I have some hot debates right now going on.
Okay.
So this is something that really drives me absolutely up the wall nuts. So, and I have a short fuse for it.
We're going to debate? Let's see if I can push you.
I don't know. You push me because, I guess maybe if you're on the other side of this, or maybe even if you're not, you want to be today, that may be a good one.
I might want to be. Okay, let's do it.
All right. So AI and job replacement. Okay. So every day I see this almost where like the headlines are screaming about AI replacing jobs, end to end, your people like Microsoft out there talking about how, they're laying off people because of AI. Klarna, we know that whole story, which became, false pretense or, kind of maybe some of it was true, some of it was not. You got IBM, you got Google. You have all these companies that are basically saying, hey, look, guys, we're laying off people and it's because of AI. Yeah. Well, then the media gets hold of this and then they, got to get their viewership, which is why I don't like media. So I apologize if anyone out there is listening, works for a media company. But basically all they do is amplify and take the things that will get readership that may not actually be what's really happening. They don't take the time and diligence to explain.
It's a clickbait.
What's going on, et cetera. Right. And I just want to ground this a little bit. So I'll maybe say three things. So to kind of frame this. So number one, every technology platform shift we've had, there have been jobs that have been changed. Okay. AI is no different. So there used to be people that lit lamps. That was their job. There used to be people that were phone operators and used to plug in switchboards and shit. That was their job. Like those don't exist anymore. Why? Because technology changed. Right. This is just a continual progression of a platform shift. But what also happened during those technology shifts? Different jobs and more jobs were created. And we've seen that from the World Economic Forum every single time so far. Now, granted, AI is probably the most powerful technology we've ever seen. So there may be some differences, but this is what we are going through right now. Number one is no different than any other technology platform shift that we went through. I think that's thing one we have to ground ourselves on. Thing two, when we talk about AI replacing people, bro, BPOs and outsourcing have been around for forever. You can go get cheap labor in the Philippines or in different countries or things like that. Like outsourcing labor is not really, that's not new. That's not a new concept. It's been around since the 80s and 90s. And sales automation and all these like automated things are also not new. I mean, they've been around since the 90s, and then you had your outreaches and sales loss and things that just expanded. So this AI SDR, like it's just automation and things on steroids. So this is not replacing people. We just now are using technology in bad ways. Okay. And so I think again, this is not a new concept. Third, I want you to think about the companies that are hitting these headlines. What do they sell? Does Microsoft sell AI? Do they sell Copilot? Does Google sell Gemini? Does IBM have Watson and LLMs? Most of these people, Meta, most of these people have AI models. So and so they're at the forefront of where this technology is going. So I just have a very simple question. If they are really replacing labor, Why are they not selling that? That's the services industry and labor is a multi-trillion-dollar industry.
Yeah.
They need revenue streams. If they are really doing this internally, they can just turn around and sell digital labor and freaking make a killing. So if they really have figured this out, why aren't they doing it? I'll tell you why. Because they haven't figured it out, and it's not a thing. All right? Let me tell you what's a thing. They overhired, and they're very large companies, and very large companies go through normal 5%, 10% cuts here and there as priorities shift, as performance gaps happen, as they want to look at how their organizations are structured because maybe they got too big in certain places. This is a normal thing. There's no reason to amplify it like, oh my God, doom and gloom, AI is here. And there's a LinkedIn post I read, I absolutely was insane. And I'll get off my soapbox in 1 second.
It's okay.
But this has got, in my mind, it's got to stop. It's not out there where AI can replace a role end to end today. From everything that the human does, I have not seen it in one. And I would challenge anyone to be able to show me end to end it can replace a complete function and a complete person's role and everything that they do without another human involved. Okay, I'll be quiet. I made my point. I'd love to hear your take on this.
Okay, I got a couple, but I got to ask. So, what's the pet peeve? What's the thing that gets you fired up? Is it the myth that gets you pissed? What's the trigger?
It's the myth that, like, we're in this doom and gloom phase that everyone should be like, everyone's going to lose their job and all we're going to have is a bunch of AI running around in the next 12 months that are doing everyone's job for them. And I just don't think that's true. I think again, going back to the first topic we made, which is why I put that in order, that's the approach. That's what's going to happen. It's going to make people way more effective, which means that, yes, you don't have to go hire more people because you can 10x, 20x, or 100x your individual contribution. And yes, you may have a new problem you're trying to solve, but you may not, but you're not going to eliminate, or you may be too heavily staffed in a department like engineering, for example. And you say, okay, well, I don't need 200 engineers. I just need 150 now. Like, those things are going to happen, but that's normal. Like, through every technology shift, that's normal. So this whole amplification is really what drives me nuts. That's my pet peeve.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I hear the trigger, make sure I don't piss you off on accident. what I'm hearing is that there's overhiring, as usually happens, and AI becomes the scapegoat of laying off when it happens every year anyways, even before AI, is what I'm hearing. Correct? It's the inaccuracy. Okay.
That's
now
right.
you said one thing I'm going to actually disagree with you on.
Yes. All right. Let's go.
How about that? Okay. I'll say it's a yes, I agree with you, and yes, I also don't agree with you. So I'm going to give the other side. So you said AI is like every other tech we've ever had. And I'm like, no, it's not. That's the one thing I'd say is it's not. It is similar in a lot of ways. Like, you are going to have progress, and there's things that are very similar to past ways of doing things. But AI is also not like the past different things because it has the cognitive ability to do things that we've never had before. It's just plain automation, So to your point, I'd say, like, I do think that, like, using Amos as an example, in the past, because he didn't have the ability to do an automation or do AI, he would have had to have hired someone. So you could argue that there's a job being taken away from Amos's team because he's using AI instead of somebody else. Now, he's arguing that he's amplifying himself times 100 because he is. But the also argument is there's a job there that you're now eliminated because you're using AI. That's the other side, right? So and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm saying that I've heard that argument many, many, many times, right? And at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, if this, my opinion is, a lot of those type of jobs are jobs that, if it can be automated, shouldn't have been done by a human in the first place. And we're so used to the things that humans do that we think can't be automated that we have to do because it's soul sucking. You're like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not what I want to do. So anyways, I think there's going to be a world where a lot of automation happens that will replace a lot of jobs that are going to be surprising. I should say, maybe take it back. It's going to replace a lot of the tasks of jobs that are surprising that may justify someone being let go, but you'll still need someone in the loop in the next foreseeable future to do some of this stuff, because at least right now, AI can't do it by itself. You have to have someone like an Amos or someone who's in the middle of it, making sure that things are working. Otherwise, it's not going to work. If you just let AI run an entire organization, we don't have Jarvis yet. Maybe somebody does, like a Tony Stark who's not talking about it, but we don't have a Jarvis type level thing where it can run an entire organization by itself. We don't have that yet. But to be fair, let's go on the other side. when that happens, because that's where we're going, that's where OpenAI predicts we're going, is the next level from where we are at now. AI agents. There's 5 levels. Agents is number 3. The next one is on innovation AI agents, and the last one's organizational, right? So when that happens, and you have the ability for a sales rep to have everything possible automated, so that a team of 4 could do the team of 40. The question is, I guess, I have a question for you. If you had ability to have a scale revenue team and you do it with 10 people versus 100 before, why would you hire 100? And my factor would be is, okay, if I can 10x 10 people to 100, then I could 10x 100 people to 1,000. You know what I mean? That's my argument of like saying keep the same people, just amplifying like crazy. But then there's costs involved, and there's all the HR stuff and blah blah blah. So I think we are going to see this like pullback as we go long term. But I also think that those pullback are going to be the people who either weren't passionate at their job anyways, don't really enjoy it, so not applying themselves, or weren't a good fit in the first place, but they're doing it because it's the only thing they can do. And AI, in my opinion, will release their genius in other ways so they can do the things they need to do with AI amplifying them. They should never been in the job in the first place. Make sense? So
Yeah,
that's my take.
100% makes sense. And so let me clarify the point I made real quick.
Yeah.
So I said AI is not the technology. So I did clarify AI. The technology is something like we've never seen before.
Yeah,
but the technology platform shift that we're going through has happened before. New technologies happen. Internet's happened. Mobile happened. The Industrial Revolution happened. So while the technology is the most powerful one that we have seen in any of these, the technology platform shift is something that happens every decade, and it takes away jobs. As far as the number, it does take away certain jobs. Like you said, there's certain things that people shouldn't be doing. Like, should there ever been a lamplighter? I don't know, but they needed
it one time apparently.
They needed it, right? And so but is that really a job of like maximizing human creativity, maximizing what we're capable of doing? I would say no. You just like probably walked up a ladder, you clicked the lighter or something, or turned it or whatever, and then you got down and you went on. Like it's very mundane. And so this is going to happen, but this has happened in history. This has happened every single time. And what happens? So I don't need 100 sellers in here, 100 sellers. I need 40 or whatever the numbers you were given. And so what happens with those 60 people? It's not replacing the seller altogether. And so that's where I get a little out of bend, is like, it's not going, I'm not just going to have a bunch of AI agents that do a complete, seller's role from end to end. I'm not going to have one human there and in sales. Like that's going to happen at least in the foreseeable future, right? I don't know what 20 years from now, 10 years from now, what this technology looks like, but in the foreseeable future, it's not today, it's not next year. You're going to have this. The second thing is now what you just said, and I really love, and it kind of goes into our next topic, which is, now, what can those people do? There's new roles that are out there. We talked about prompt engineering before as kind of like a moat and stuff. We've talked about vibe coding as creating something. You can create businesses now with like Amos's, for an example. You can create. We just lost coach, but you can create businesses like Amos, and he's doing it with 3 people. That wasn't really possible before. And so now I think what you can do is you can actually take what the technology is giving you, if you harness it in the right way, and now you're able to, now create something with less. And I think that's where some of these roles could go to. Yes, some will be performance-based, 100%. That's every day. But then ultimately, some of these roles that are eliminated is going to create foundry, is going to create new types of roles and things. And I think we just got to, stop the doom is gloom of AIs replacing roles end to end, and no one's going to have a job in the next 2 years. So that's
Sorry, I lost you. I don't know what happened. I'm back. So let's keep going.
I kept going. No worries. All good.
Okay.
Whatever.
You can pontificate. You're fine.
So speaking of what happens, when these I don't need, as many people. So now we talked about Amos, what he was doing. We talked about, AI and transitioning, that there will be, job loss, but there's not going to be, and also job gains. But now what's happening with vibe coding is it's empowering the idea people. So previously,
Yeah.
before AI, what happened? Like, people had an idea, but they didn't have the technical chops or knew the technical people that could actually bring that to life. So we lived in an era where only the folks that were technically, had the technical capabilities to code and do those things. Or if you knew someone that didn't and you grouped together as founders, those are the people that were able to create these products and these businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's almost like the paradigm is starting to shift a little bit to where the idea people are potentially having their day in the sun, because AI can now help you code the whole vibe coding trend, et cetera. And there's a democratization of these tech created tools. And me and you do this all the time. In fact, in the WhatsApp group, we were just talking about yesterday, the different tools that people are testing and using for vibe coding. So question is like, does this new empowerment level the playing field? And do you think that there will be more and more startups probably than we ever seen before, with like people that couldn't have done this pre-AI? So they couldn't have done this, in 2021. They couldn't have done this in before that, but now they can. And so do you foresee this, like more and more people like shipping cool products at less cost, people that had ideas and are non-technical being able to actually create these things?
I've heard a couple of theories on this, and it'll be fascinating to see where we go, because I don't know. But like, let's just think like logically where we're going as far as speed. Like when you see like video generation where we were a year ago and where we are now, it's like light and day difference. I think the world's going to come to where, yes, it will create entrepreneurs, but it'll almost be okay. I'll see if I can set this up right, because I have a lot of thoughts on this. If you have the ability at a prompt, like let's say with a voice instead of like a prompt, you speak to an AI and it creates this super robust, very advanced thing, because you have MCP protocol hooked up to something, you have all your integrations hooked up, you do the platform you use is already SOC 2 compliance, you have all the security things you need to have. You just pop and you ask for something to prompt it, and you have this really robust technology that you can then launch and go pretty well. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, and the technology that will stay is the ones that are deeply integrated into a specific workflow that understands the problems, what's happening, because they can prompt deeper into the problems versus someone who doesn't know the problem area and just says, hey, make me a veterinarian website about whatever, but it's not as deep as someone who was in a veterinary or a veterinary doctor who can go deep into, I know they need this, I know they need this, I know they need this. And I say it because I listened to this again, another YC podcast, and one from Andrew Ng, him too. And he talked about how he's a good coder himself. He's using Cursor to do coding and Windsurf and some other tools. And he was just saying like the depth and the value of technology you're using now comes back to the human who's prompting the technology, because the coding is not a barrier anymore. So then what drives the value is someone who knows how deep you can go in that problem, because otherwise anyone who knows how to prompt, it's like me with Midjourney. I'm not an artist, but I can go make a cool comic book character or something like that, and I don't have to go pay somebody to go do it. I'm just go do it myself, right? But the really, really cool art comes from someone who understands the imagery and can prompt differently than I can, because I'm not an image person. It's kind of like coaching. When I make prompting for coaching, my prompts are way more robust than others who have never coached before. So I feel like there's going to be like a world where the surface level stuff, there's going to be a shit ton of them. But the deep, really impactful stuff is going to be the things that will stay long term, because they understand the problem area verticalized. I think that's why YC is saying vertical AI agents is where you need to go, because the depth of knowledge that you have around the use case. Like their example was, do you understand how people in Kansas sell tractors? Because if you don't, you can prompt for it, but it's not going to be all the things that the guy who sells tractors in Kansas needs to have. The value comes from the person who's willing to go sit down with them. Like, even if you're not an ex-tractor salesperson, it's more like, have you gone and sat down with them, asked them the questions they have, what are the pains they go through, and is it accustomed to that, so you can then launch a product that does exactly what they're needing. You know what I mean? I think that's where we're going to be. So we'll have both sides, a crap ton of crap, I shouldn't say crap, service level, and then really deep integrated verticalized type solutions.
I think it makes sense. I think the domain expertise, right, is in kind of what you're hitting on, is understanding you'll be able to get to that depth. And I mean, I was while you're talking, I was just pulling it up because in our WhatsApp, like Maya, right? She obviously is product,
Mhm.
And because one of the things we were talking about, we were like throwing some stuff around, and she was like, "Hey, try this prompt. Redesign the UI with inspiration from the original Path app splash screen." Right?
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't have ever thought of that.
Oh,
You know?
you mean from Azzy? From Azzy, yeah.
Yes. So ultimately, and then like, hey, include micro interactions. Tone should be user first. Like I would have thought
Yeah,
of that.
little something. Yeah, the things that you and I, we're not product people.
No,
Yeah,
never thought of that, right? And so that just goes to your point of, there'll be people that are able to create, but they're still going to need other people or other expertise for the expertise they don't have. The great thing though is it won't take a ton of capital and a ton of time.
yep,
It's just be able to take the right people, right, that have the right domain expertise to do that. And
yep,
you can go real deep, and you can go, build something that's great and that can solve problems. But to your point, you've got to understand the problem that you're solving intimately, and that's no different than any business, because the reason a lot of startups fail is because sometimes they create a solution and then they go try to find the problem, or they don't understand the problem deep enough, and that how their solution actually solves and impacts them. And so I think that's critical to any business, regardless if you can go build your product or not build your product, is understanding the problem deeply, understanding how to solve it, and then building a solution around solving that problem. So yes, I'm
totally.
completely on the same page.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
but man,
yeah. There's. Let me. You see the question from Amin.
oh no, nope.
I think it kind of sort of goes along. I mean, kind of the topic. So let's answer real quick before we move to the next
Okay.
topic. It says, "Hey guys, if the question is appropriate, I've been trying to sell voice agents to chiropractors, and they seem to prefer just humans on the other line. Any idea what product might be better to build out? I have some thoughts. But what do you think?"
I would ask the question: Why is the challenge, or why do they think the
Yeah,
challenge
they
is?
seem to prefer humans over a voice AI agent to chiropractors. Any idea what the product might be better to build out? That was this question.
No, I don't understand. I don't understand why. I guess the question would be. I mean, maybe you could
All
do.
right.
Yeah. Because is it because it's robotic in sounding? Is it because it sounds too real and it's not? Like, what's interesting is we have a solution that's conversational AI, and it's super interesting because there's a lot of tests that were happening where if it's too robotic sounding, people don't like it and just want to go by. If it's too human sounding, like you can't like 11 Labs. It'll be interesting to see what 11 Labs does, but if it's too human sounding, when they have to get to a human, sometimes they're disappointed because they're like, oh, I thought I was talking to someone. So it's kind of like this
Yeah.
balance in between. So one is the tone right? Two is it giving the right information, all the information that's needed and stuff, as is it solving my problem? Like if I don't think people mind talking to AI as long as it's solving the problem, and I'm not having to like
Yeah.
press 1 to do this, press 7 to do this, or hey, do you want this? So is it tuned in the right way? So I would try to figure out and solve like why is that? The other side, and yeah, your point is like, go to a different modality. If it's not voice, then is there a different modality that does potentially make sense that can solve a problem that a chiropractor is having, or that a patient trying to get to a chiropractor is having, and go through chat or other modalities? So those would be some things. Not understanding the problem deeply enough. Those would be some things I would say. But what you had some right off the bat thoughts. So I'm sure yours is way better than mine.
No. I agree with you. There's. I used to sell a chiropractor, so I could tell you what I think from.
Oh, there you go. So you're a domain expert. You should have said that at the start.
I don't see that because you've used it. Like I haven't used an AI agent inside of our thing, so I don't know that. But like I use inside of the academy, I use a voice agent for one of the courses. But people know, to your point, they know it's an AI agent because I'm in the AI academy, so it's a little bit different. So I would agree with you though. I think it's really diving into asking the Kairos, like, this kind of goes back to the question of, they may not have decided if they even like or want the AI to be their brand experience for people. So like number one is saying, is that what they want, or what's the goal? If the goal is to get people booked, there's got to be a way that they can make it so, whether it's real or robotic or whatever the case might be, it's really understanding like what is their concern. Are they concerned about throwing it off? Are they willing to do a test and then give a test? Which most people are going to say, no, I'm not going to test and lose out on 10 deals I could have had. They're not going to say that. So I think the other way around, if I was this person and it's difficult to sell to AI agents, what I would do instead is to create a lead service. use the AI agents to create leads, and then send them to the chiropractor practically and say,
Mm.
by the way, I just sent you 10 leads, and they all were done with AI. I'd bring them with results first, and then I'd say, I sell this service. I just gave you 10 leads. Do you want to try this? More than likely, they'd be like, hell yeah, I want to do that. Like, that's way different than saying, let me experiment with your people now. Say, I'm going to bring you leads, bring you value, and show you that it works, and then let's operationalize and charge you for it. That's what I would do. So
Yeah, I think it's great. And so the reason, and that ties in. So the reason that, so I'm in the health tech industry, different than chiropractor. But the reason that people, our clients want conversational AI is a couple of things. One is the front desk is the highest turnover role that they have, and they have a hard time staffing it and keeping it. And what happens when they don't have the front desk is they lose phone calls. What happens on their phone calls that go unanswered because people are taking care of patients?
wow.
60% of people that call into their business want to set up an appointment. So they're missing the appointments when they can't have someone at the front desk, which means they're missing out on patient care. They're missing out on actual revenue. So it solves that problem for them, number one. Number two is it frees up that front desk person when they do have it, because if conversational AI can set the appointment, the other big one is to ask about hours or ask about the location address, something that can be answered simply, that doesn't take a human, and that way that human can be free to do other things like greet patients or make sure they're doing okay while they're waiting or things of that nature. And the third one is automated like calls about, hey, just a reminder, you have an appointment coming up, or hey, you have a bill due, here it is. And so that again is something, going back to our original point of like lamp lighting, that's something that you don't need a human to do, because it takes them away from other things that they could be better at doing. And so maybe the approach, going back to kind of round back to your point, is start with the pain point that it solves and the value that it's bringing with the results. And that's why those results there and that value is exactly why we have many of our customers that actually want conversational AI. So
yeah, I love it, man. Love it. Hope that was helpful. I mean, keep going. Let's roll.
All right. Topic, gap between AI ambition and operational reality. So we chatted a little bit about this last week, but this keeps, kind of coming up, where AI is promising these transformational business outcomes, which is possible to do. The challenge, though, is in the operation reality. And that's why all these AI deployments get stuck in pilot mode. By the way, sorry, I'm not going on my soapbox again, but if 87% of, I think it's 87%, or 85%, like that, of AI deployments fail or don't go past pilot, I don't know how you're going to replace roles with it. But anyway, let's go back to the point I'm trying to make here. So despite all the excitement,
I think we need a soapbox, square box for you. That's okay. Let's go.
Despite all the excitement of all the agents, multi-agent systems and things like that, there's still a big infrastructure gap and operational gap with, data, process, training, all these things. So the question I have for you, and just in general, is like, why do you think that people miss this? Why do you think that this is not a prerequisite to implementing AI that's kind of well understood or known? And what are some of the ways that people can solve this? Because obviously the promise of AI is so massive and large, and we're all using AI in different ways. Is like, how do we help people get over this, hurdle to actually implement effective AI and reduce that number of deployments that are failing?
Yeah, your stat in the note says 85% of AI agent deployments fail to scale due to inadequate infrastructure and system integration, not because of the AI agents. I think it's something to be aware of. It's kind of like what you and I talked about with AI SDRs. It's like ASDRs fail to deliver, but when you really look under the hood, it's not the AI SDR that's the problem. It's because they don't have their ICP identified, or because they don't have the right messaging down, or they have the right positioning statement, or something that has nothing to do with the AI SDR. But the ASDR gets scapegoated as the problem. So I think AI right now is really unveiling most people's weakness, which is they've gotten by so long with all this piddly-do crap, and now AI is forcing them to look at things like saying, do we really have a process? No, we should probably make one. Like I won't say the name, but there's a company who we're working with right now in pipeline with Momentum that massive company, and like they're huge, and they barely hired a RevOps person, and he's tasked with like implementing AI instead of their their tech stack, and like they're so far behind that I'm like, it's organizations like this that are massive that are slowly going to be taken out because lower, smaller teams who are faster and nimbler who can serve the customer better are going to wipe them out because they can't go fast enough because the org has either too much red tape or the structure itself is so big they can't do anything. You know what I mean? And people are like, I can't wait around for this massive conglomerate to actually get the shit together and do some things. I'm going to work with someone actually can get something done. You know what I mean? So I think that's what the next level of disruption is going to be, is seeing how both internally and externally people execute to make those differences, which to me unveils the bigger problem, which is not AI focus. It's the infrastructure focus. Kind of like you just said, it's an infrastructure problem. It's not an AI problem.
That's right. Yeah, it's not the technology that's failing us. It's our own internal barriers and challenges. And one of the things we've done is we've built these data silos over time, right? We have all this data that sits in different places and not connected, and to some degree, and we have kind of dispersed processes. And so think of how hard it is for a human. Like just think about what you have to do. If you're in RevOps, if you're a CRO, even if you're a CEO, what all you have to do to understand if a process is implemented and working, understand where all the data is and if it's accurate, understand how to pull all the data together and try to create a narrative. Like an AI can't just like magically weave all of those things together for you. You have to be able to have them in the right place. The infrastructure has to be there. Systems have to be connected, and it has to have context, just like any other person would. You've got to fix those things first. And trust me, like when I started at Xperity, and it's a large company, been around for a while. The first thing, of course, I wanted to do was implement AI. But what would have happened? It would have failed. We had to get our stuff together in order for us to be able to start finding the right places to implement AI and make it effective. Right. And so, yes, we're chopping at the bit, and there's, people are like, hey, you're talking about all this stuff. How come we haven't implemented it yet? I'm like, we're not ready. We're getting there, but we're not ready. So I know
we're not there yet.
Yeah, we all know where we're headed and how we want to do it. But we got to get our core foundational, infrastructure, all this stuff together before we can start doing that, or otherwise we're all just going to look silly and it's going to fail. And I think it's so important, just like if you're in go-to-market, understanding your ICP and persona, like you said, understanding your messaging, the value you're providing, and the impact to your personas, knowing them so deeply. Or if you're in a business, like we talked about earlier, don't go build a business or a product and then trying to find the problem, do things manually to understand how you're going to solve the problem, and then go productize it. Like that's how you do it. It's the same thing here. You've got to do the manual hard work of building the right infrastructure and right system connections first. Then you can put in AI, and then it will be successful.
That's right. Hey, before we go, I got to hear one thing though. You just had I shouldn't say long, probably what's the word? Crap, I got another word. You had a lot of podcasts. You were at RevFest this week. You didn't talk about it. Like, we even know it's RevFest and what's going on at RevFest, dude.
Yeah, man. So shout out to Jen from Go Nimbly for throwing an amazing conference that was different than any other one I've ever been to. So it was great. Different type of venue. Comedians were there. So it was, a lot of good revenue people there talking about what they're doing. A lot of AI was discussed. So I think content was great. We did have 2 live podcasts. So those will be coming out too on the GTM AI, which is awesome. So one was with Kim Babcock who's the co-founder and CEO of Tango. So Tango is they've made a big pivot and shift in their product, and they're using a lot of AI. So that was a good one. And then the other one was
Ross.
Ross Rich from Accord.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, he was great. So a lot of good things that they're doing as well in the space. So yeah, so it was the first live pod I've ever done. In fact, Ross was my first one, and it was the first one he had ever done. He has a podcast. So we kind of shared that together. But yeah, they had a good setup, so I'm sure you'll see it. But it was great. Great interviews, great people, great conference. So shout out to Jen and the Go Nimbly team. So
that's awesome. Way to go. So from the topic of AI, like through all the talks, like any insights you'd share if I was like patterns or trends? I'm just curious what was talked about you'd want to share.
No, I would just say the pattern and the trend I'm seeing really is people are, we say this a lot, but people are just, they have curiosity and they're trying things. And in fact, and the cool thing about it was they're sharing. And there was a one talk they shared, they broke outbound 147 times so you didn't have to. Right? It's right here. We broke AI prospecting 100. Literally, this is the Notion page they created. So you didn't have to. And he goes through an in-depth way of how he built an infrastructure to do outbound the right way, and connecting different types of tools and systems, and how important the prompting is, and how many times they had to change the prompting to make it work, and things of that nature. And he shared the whole detail with everyone. I thought it was phenomenal. And then cool. There was another, Kevin from Open AI, so he's the head of GTM systems, was there. He had a conversation. And he talked about, how to select AI tools, which is obviously, one of our passionate conversations too, because no one knows how to select these things and when. And it was kind of funny to kind of go through the process with Open AI, how they select AI tools when they build one of the most, powerful AI tools that are out there.
Is it close to what we do? Or is it totally different?
Yeah, no. So it's exact. So no, they didn't build anything around it. What they did was,
what was the process to pick tools?
Oh, the process.
So
basically was he kind of built it into 3 categories. I think it was I'm going to miss one of those: crystallize, contextualize, and then there was another C. But ultimately, what it came down to was you get stakeholder alignment on the problem and figure out what they need to do. You evaluate the vendors. You create a rubrics and you evaluate the vendors through the rubrics, and then you ultimately then make the decision. So it's like no real difference, I guess. It's just really around the process and how they think about it and go about it. But what he did do was he created a custom GPT to help you. And so he shared that out. And so, but I think this goes to the power again of hey, they solved the problem with a custom GPT, right? They had the custom GPT he basically inputs all of the call transcripts. So they basically go have these stakeholder interviews.
Right.
They get the call transcripts. They put it in the GPT. The GPT creates a rubrics for them. Then they basically ask and creates questions that they can ask vendors and stuff to help them kind of see where they're at and evaluate websites and things like that. Then they put that information into the GPT with the website and the call recordings from their vendor conversations, and then have the GPT based upon that rubrics and all that call intelligence score and showcase where they're at. Yeah. And then you can go back and say, what about this? Who was the best vendor for XYZ? Or does this vendor do these things later from the conversation? So I thought that was this kind of a smart way to use a custom GPT in a vendor evaluation or selection process. So that was really interesting.
But you'll notice what he's missing is the prioritizing the problem, which is why we start with revenue and goals. That's why we start with that, because otherwise you could be solving problems that don't. I mean, I'm sure they solve smart problems, but still, it's where do you start? Because there's a bajillion problems.
Which one? You can't fix them all, man. Go to market so broken, and building a business is tough, and there's a lot of problems you're going to run into. So which ones do you fix first?
It's the same model that Gartner and Forrester did, which I don't mind. It's just you don't start. Anyways, you and I can talk this for a while. I just don't think that's where you start. I think it's the step. It's not the start. So
that's right. I love. Yep. 100% agree. 100%
that's
agree.
Right. Cool.
All right, my man. Another, what was this, 11? So episode 11. Appreciate everyone that's tuned in, joining, or if you didn't tune in live and you're watching, we appreciate you. Then another amazing episode with my man Coach K on the AI Business Pod. Check us out in the ticker. Two of my favorite things. One's at the intro, and one is the ticker that was created.
The ticker at the end. There we go.
Check us out, AIBusinessNetwork.ai. Until next week. Cheers, y'all. Stay curious.
Later.